Good evening. Good to see you all again. Here we are studying our genocide by diet, diet and disease. Tonight is on heart disease. I just want to encourage each and every one of us, it's for us to take our health back. It's not up to anybody else. I'm sure no one would raise their hand if I asked how many here like to be sick. How many people enjoy being sick? Well, when we put food in our mouth, it's going to do one of two things. It's either going to feed disease or it's going to fight disease. So as we go through this series, I hope you'll be blessed, that you'll see things that will open your eyes a little bit more. A lot of deception in the food service industry, everything in general, but since we're talking on food. And so I try to make you aware of all those things that I can. So we want to get on with tonight's program. Hope it'll be a blessing to you. And before we begin, I'd like to just have a word of prayer, if we may. Our Heavenly Father, again, we thank you that we have this opportunity to share with each other and to learn things. You tell us in 3 John 2, Beloved, above all, I wish for you to prosper and be in health, just as your soul prospereth. So, Father, we want to see the truth tonight. We ask that your Holy Spirit will be our teacher, and we thank you in Christ's name. Amen. Diet and disease, heart disease. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and nothing will benefit human health and increase chances for survival on Earth as much as evolution to a vegetarian diet. Oh, Einstein, pretty smart man. Let food be your medicine, medicine be your food. And we will see that. Again, it's hard for people to believe at times how powerful food is, what we put in our mouth and how it helps us, how it can reverse diseases. But you're going to see some things tonight that may surprise you, especially if you have heart disease and you're looking at triple bypasses and things are going on. There's good news tonight if you believe what you see, and research it out. You don't have to take my word for it. But it's powerful. And to use a little analogy type, I could give you a pound of vegan candy and it wouldn't be healthy just because it's vegan, right? And it would make you sick. And I can give you vegan soda pop and vegan junk food. And it's not healthy. And you'd have no trouble believing you'd get sick if you ate a whole bunch of it. But if we turn around and give you good nourishing food and whole food plant-based foods and say this is going to make your body healthy and it's going to reverse diseases, type 2 diabetes, with very few exceptions, can all be reversed strictly with diet. Heart disease doesn't have to happen. So we'll go through this tonight and see some of this. And complete health includes the body, the spirit, and the mind. And so when one lacks, the others suffer. We all know that. And so what is heart disease and LDL and HDL cholesterol? So we need to understand heart disease. Little short video.
Heart disease affects more than 20 million Americans and is one of the leading causes of death in this country. But what exactly does the term heart disease mean?
When most people talk about heart disease, they usually mean coronary artery disease, the illness which causes both angina and heart attacks. However, there are also other conditions that affect our cardiovascular system, such as congestive heart failure and aneurysms. To better understand each of these diseases, it helps to review how the heart works. Basically, the heart is a pump. Its purpose is to circulate blood to all of the organs of the body. The heart is made up of 4 chambers, 2 ventricles that pump blood out of the heart, and 2 atria, which hold the blood returning to the heart. The heart receives its entire supply of blood through 3 coronary arteries. Coronary artery disease occurs when there is a buildup of fatty plaque known as atherosclerosis inside the coronary arteries. When the buildup is sufficient to restrict but not stop blood flow into the heart, the result is angina, a discomfort or pain in the chest. Angina isn't actually a disease, but rather it is a symptom of coronary artery disease. When the buildup of atherosclerosis is sufficient to interrupt blood flow to the heart, the result is the death of heart muscle cells, commonly known as a heart attack. So, both angina and heart attacks are really caused by the buildup here in the coronary arteries. Congestive heart failure, on the other hand, occurs when the heart is pumping inefficiently and can no longer meet the body's need for blood. The ventricles, which are the main pumps within the heart, often are to blame for the insufficient blood flow. The The congestive part of congestive heart failure comes from the backup of blood in the veins leading into the heart. This backup causes the kidney to retain fluids. Other less common diseases affect other parts of the heart. For example, when a patient is suffering from an aneurysm, that means that their aorta has swollen, creating a bulge in the artery. Understanding heart disease is an important first step towards prevention.
Yes, and keep it there. We're going to see what LDL and HDL cholesterol is. This is good news. When we can learn and understand, we talk about knowledge is power and education is knowledge. And so as we get educated, at least we have a target we can go towards. So I think that's good news. And lifestyle change is required, but that's less threatening than having your chest cut open and all the things that go with it. I would much rather change my diet than go through all that and have medications for the rest of my life and shorten my life in addition. These just help delay certain things. So heart disease, the leading cause of death for men and women. 630,000 Americans die each year, 1 in 4 deaths. It's the most common type of heart disease, killing 366,000 people. United States, 1 every 40 seconds. So that's almost 2 a minute, and that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So stop and think about that. Every 40 seconds, somebody just had a heart attack in this country. And several of them died. Heart disease, the leading cause of death for people. Different racial groups have different things. Again, all this on the screen is in print, so you can check it out for yourself. Asian Americans, Pacific Islander, Indians, Alaska Natives, heart disease second only to cancer. It's interesting, before the pipeline was put in Alaska, when they looked at Eskimos up there, diabetes was 0. Now they have 50% diabetics up there as Eskimos. Once they put that in, we started shipping up candy bars, all the junk food that we eat down here in the lower, and they bought into that, and it just shows you. So a lot of deception. Heart disease costs the United States $200 billion each year. That's total care. Some of the risk factors: high blood pressure, high LDL cholesterol, smoking. We hear about LDL cholesterol. We're going to see a short video in a second on that so that we can understand what that is. Your high density lipoprotein is the good cholesterol, and the low density is bad. And we're going to see why. So let's take a peek at that. We had a double slide there. Sorry about that. Well, somehow I've got my notes wrong. Sorry about that. Going to the risk factors. High blood pressure, high LDL, and smoking are the key heart disease risk factors for heart disease. About half of the Americans have at least one of these 3 risk factors. And you're going to see one of the big common denominators is obesity, and overweight creates a lot of problems with health. We'll see if I got this one right. All right. Good thing we're family so we can understand. Thank you.
If you or someone you know has been diagnosed with high cholesterol, it's important to understand what cholesterol is and why it's important to keep it under control. Cholesterol is a fat-like substance made by your liver and also comes from foods you intake that is then packaged into particles called lipoproteins. Your body needs cholesterol to make hormones, vitamin D, and a substance that helps you digest food called bile. This video discusses 2 types of lipoproteins that carry cholesterol: low-density lipoprotein, or LDL cholesterol, also known as bad cholesterol, and high-density lipoprotein, or HDL cholesterol, also known as good cholesterol. LDL travels through your bloodstream, delivering cholesterol to the cells that need it. If your body has too much LDL, it can build up in the walls of your arteries. LDL and other substances in your artery wall form a fatty deposit called plaque. Over time, plaque can narrow the artery and reduce blood flow. LDL carries cholesterol into the plaque. This is why LDL is called the bad cholesterol. A common place this plaque can build up is in your coronary arteries, which are the blood vessels that feed your heart. This plaque buildup causes coronary artery disease and increases your risk of a heart attack. Plaque buildup in other arteries, such as the carotid arteries in your neck, can reduce blood flow to your brain and increase the risk of a stroke. Your liver also makes high-density lipoprotein, or HDL, also known as the good cholesterol. HDL helps remove excess cholesterol from your cells, tissues, and from plaque in your blood vessels. This is why HDL is called the good cholesterol. HDL returns the excess cholesterol to your liver, which removes it from your body. If after viewing this information you have questions about cholesterol or any medications you've been prescribed to help manage your high cholesterol, speak with your healthcare provider. It is important to take your medications as directed by your provider.
So as we can see, when we eat so much fat and create this LDL in us, it's very easy to see how our arteries plug up. And anytime we interfere with circulation in our bodies, it's going to create problems somewhere. The good news is that people who go to a high whole food plant-based diet, you can melt that fat away. It's just amazing. And you'll see a little film clip at the end showing some of that. So there is good news, but we have to accept the facts of what's really going on in our bodies. If you would look at those who have the standard American diet, when you cook bacon or you cook any of those meats and you let them set over there, you know how they look white. You go in the refrigerator the next day and the beef juice has that thick, hard white on top, that fat. Well, that's the stuff that goes in our bodies, and that's what starts plugging us up, and it's not a good thing to do. So several other medical conditions and lifestyle choices can put people at higher risk, including diabetes, overweight and obesity, poor diet, physical inactivity. That and diabetes together create many problems with the lack of exercise, excessive alcohol use. So a question for you. Is meat and dairy really good for us to eat? Do we think, we're taught that, aren't we? We're taught, I remember in the 50s as a child, milk was the perfect food. And you should have 3 glasses a day. And then it's been promoted that it's going to make strong bones and teeth and all this stuff. And we find out all these years later it's the opposite. The countries with the highest rate of dairy intake have the highest rate of osteoporosis, have the weakest bones. It's a fantasy. So why meat is bad for us in 60 seconds.
We have all been told that animal flesh is an essential part of a healthy diet, but meat consumption has been associated with almost all the major diseases. Meat is high in fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol, which will increase the risk of heart disease and can cause other serious health problems like diabetes. It is high in animal protein, which is far too acidic for the human body and has been linked to kidney disease, cancer, and osteoporosis. Most meat also contains antibiotics and growth hormones like estrogen and testosterone, which can promote cancer growth. And fish is also contaminated with mercury, which is toxic and can cause brain damage and may also contribute to atrial fibrillation and fatal heart attack risk.
A lower risk of chronic disease, fewer allergies, fewer surgeries. We're talking fewer varicose veins and hemorrhoids, even fewer hysterectomies. And we're not talking just the big killers, right? Not just less heart disease, cancer. This is the longest study on vegetarians in human history. Not just less heart disease and stroke and high blood pressure and diabetes, but less diverticulosis, less, if you can read this, less diseases overall. Right? That's the side effects of a plant-based diet, less disease overall.
Fortunately, there is no need to consume meat or other animal products, and a whole foods plant-based diet can provide all the essential nutrients for long-term health.
Again, these are just to make people aware. We want to make people aware of what's going on out there. The coloring of meat. We'll see next week what they do to hamburger and stuff. People are eating things they don't realize what they're eating. They have no clue what's going on, and they have a right to know that. So 6 things that happen when you quit eating meat. This is nice. Pay attention. You might be surprised at some of this.
6 things that happen when you stop eating meat. Leave us a comment after this video. If you're like me, and you've watched more food documentaries than you can count, and you know about some of the health benefits of switching to a meat-free diet, but for some reason you just aren't quite ready to make the leap, these facts may just give you that extra push. Cutting meat out of your diet can aid in weight loss, provide a boost in energy, reduce your risk of heart disease, and more. You will want to check out these amazing benefits if you are considering going plant-based. Number 1. You will reduce inflammation in your body. Meat, cheese, and highly processed foods can cause a spike of inflammation in your body within hours of consumption. As a response to animal fat, our arteries are paralyzed and their ability to open is cut in half, and our lungs also become inflamed. This inflammation is an immune response to a perceived threat. Long-term effects of continuous inflammation can lead to heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, and even cancer. Plant-based diets are anti-inflammatory in a natural way, because they are abundant in plant fiber and antioxidants, and significantly lower in inflammatory triggers such as saturated fat and endotoxins, toxins released from bacteria commonly found in animal products. Number 2. Your blood cholesterol levels will plummet. Red meat, poultry, cheese, and other animal products contain saturated fat, which is a key factor in elevating blood cholesterol levels. Elevated blood cholesterol levels dramatically increase your risk for heart disease and stroke, which have been named among the top killers in the U.S. Vegetarians have been shown to have a lower risk of dying of heart disease, and studies have shown that when people turn to plant-based diets, their blood cholesterol levels drop by 35%. Plant-based diets are also rich in fiber, which reduces blood cholesterol levels, and cutting out meat can have a positive effect on those who need cholesterol-lowering drugs. Number 3. Your chance of developing type 2 diabetes will be reduced. Research shows that following a vegetarian diet can help prevent and manage diabetes. Several studies have found that a higher intake of animal protein is associated with a long-term risk of developing diabetes. Animal fat, animal-based, heme, iron and nitrate preservatives in meat have been found to damage pancreatic cells, worsen inflammation, cause weight gain, and even impair our insulin functions, all which can increase the risk for type 2 diabetes. Number 4. You may lose a few pounds. The obesity rate in the general public is extremely high, but it is found to be much lower in vegetarians. According to a study in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, caloric intake in meat eaters and vegetarians was similar, but meat eaters had a much higher rate of obesity. Meat eaters also had the lowest intake of plant proteins, beta-carotene, fiber, magnesium, and the highest intake of heart disease-linked fatty acids. A vegetarian diet low in fat and rich in fresh vegetables, fruits, and whole grains may lead to healthy weight loss. Number 5. You can better avoid toxic food contaminants. Animal products are loaded with contaminants such as hormones, herbicides, pesticides, and antibiotics, all of which can cause health problems. A high percentage of all the flesh from chickens, turkeys, cows, fish, and pigs butchered every year in the U.S. is contaminated with E. coli, Listeria, Campylobacter, and other dangerous bacteria. Consuming contaminated meat can cause food poisoning, with symptoms ranging from stomach cramps to organ failure and even death. The CDC estimates that each year roughly 1 in 6 Americans, or 48 million people, get sick, 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 of them die of foodborne diseases. Staying away from meat could help save you from dangerous foodborne viruses, bacteria, and parasites, providing that you consume fresh, organic produce. Number 6. You will make an impact on the health of our planet. There are many ways that switching to a plant-based diet can have a positive impact on the environment. Raising animals for food currently uses an astounding 30% of the Earth's land mass. In the US, 70% of the grain grown is fed to farmed animals, food that could be given to people. Nearly 80% of land deforested in the Amazon is now used as cattle pasture, and to produce 1 pound of animal protein versus 1 pound of soy protein, it takes about 12 times as much land, 13 times as much fossil fuel, and 15 times as much water. Switching to a diet free of meat, dairy, and eggs saves 50% more carbon emissions than driving a Prius. By going vegetarian, you can reduce the impact of climate change and rainforest destruction and pollution, while saving water and other natural resources. Becoming a vegetarian has many health benefits that may just be worth giving up your typical Thanksgiving turkey, 4th of July burgers and hot dogs, and Christmas ham. If you're still deciding whether or not to make the switch, try cutting out meat for a week or two, and see if you feel any different. If you're fighting meat cravings, there are some amazing vegetarian and vegan recipes out there that you can try.
It's interesting when you see some of these side effects, and you remember in our last session we talked about the average American is eating 221 pounds of meat a year, and they're consuming 153 pounds of sugars. You start adding all this stuff up, you can see why we have a problem in this country. And the meat eating, and this is not even counting all the carbon monoxide they're doing to color meat so it doesn't look spoiled, other things that they're adding in there. The deception is just unreal. So why milk and cheese is bad for you in 90 seconds. We've shown this before, but I want to emphasize dairy, how toxic it is for your body.
It is not natural for humans to drink cow's milk. Cow's milk is a high-fat fluid designed to turn a 65-pound baby calf into a 400-pound cow. Cow's milk contains animal protein, which has been proven by people like Dr. T. Colin Campbell to promote cancer growth. Animal protein is far too acidic for the human body. In order to neutralize this acidity, the body leaches calcium and phosphorus from the bones. People have been misled to believe that milk gives us strong bones, yet the countries with the highest dairy consumptions all have the highest rates of osteoporosis. Dairy products like cheese and butter are high in fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol, and are very low in vital vitamins and minerals. Diets high in fat, especially saturated fat, can increase the risk of heart disease and can cause other serious health problems like diabetes. Because cows suffer from a number of infections like mastitis, dairy contains considerable quantities of pus. A glass of milk will contain around 90 to 135 million somatic pus cells. Dairy also contains bovine growth hormones, which have been linked to obesity and cancer. It also contains antibiotics and contaminants like blood and feces. Cow's milk also contains casomorphins, a form of morphine which is highly addictive. Fortunately, there are many non-dairy alternatives, and a whole foods plant-based diet can provide all the essential nutrients for long-term health.
So you can see, we looked at the little LDL cholesterol. These type of foods create that LDL in us. That's what plugs us up. Heart attacks, several major warning signs and symptoms again, chest pain or discomfort, upper body pain or discomfort in the arms, back, neck, jaw, or upper stomach, shortness of breath, nausea, lightheadedness, cold sweats. So here's another question for us. Does bypass surgery cure heart disease? We're going to look at a short film with a doctor explaining, does that do that?
Dr. Stevenson, we had a question. Is bypass surgery a cure for heart disease?
Heart bypass surgery is designed to ameliorate the symptoms associated with blockages in the coronary arteries. Symptoms that frequently occur are the chest pain associated with any type of exertion, sometimes associated with shortness of breath when the heart simply doesn't have enough blood to contract to have the cardiac output to do whatever activity is ongoing. And we can we can go around those blockages and provide blood flow to the heart, but we don't cure heart disease, or we don't cure arteriosclerotic occlusive disease of the heart. The blockages, by and large, remain in place. We're simply going around them, but it doesn't take away the causes that put the blockages there before. And by and large, you know, people with diabetes, people who smoke, high blood cholesterol, increased lipids, triglycerides have now been shown to be an independent risk factor, and hypertension. All of these things, conditions, put people at risk. I many times say if you live long enough, you're probably going to develop some blockages in your heart. But if you have any of these other conditions, and the two that I say are just absolutely death knell, if you have diabetes and you smoke, you're asking for it. And you're going to develop blockages in your heart much, 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 much earlier than you would if you did not do those things. It's a good operation, and it provides a lot of good quality of life, and we've got studies that document that it lengthens your life, but it doesn't take away those issues that put that blockage there to begin with.
So you can see it's a Band-Aid solution. Whatever caused the fat buildup and all that stuff to start with is still being there unless you change diets. It's pretty much that simple. Bypass surgery just does what the doctor said. And there's things that guarantee that we'll have a higher risk. So here's another question, and a short video will follow. Can the most common types of heart disease be reversed and or prevented through our diet? Is that possible? It's very possible, and people will have a hard time, yet there's thousands of studies that have been out there, and the China study, the longest and biggest study ever done. But let's see what the doctor has to say about this question. Can we reverse heart disease?
So every year I review the world literature on nutrition, so I compile it, all the most kind of groundbreaking, interesting, practical advice into a kind of a quiz show format, which I enjoy giving every year here at the McDougall Advanced Study Weekends. One of the most fascinating studies to come out over the last 12 months was this study on the antioxidant content of over 3,000 different foods. The first thing they did is split things up into animal foods and plant foods, and animal foods had 64 times less antioxidants, the average animal food, than plant foods. So meat, fish, eggs, dairy, 64 times fewer antioxidants, and that reason alone is good enough to transition towards a more plant-based diet. Because if you think about, the leading killers here in the United States, not only can they be prevented and stopped in their tracks, but even reversed with a healthy plant-based diet.
Such as?
Heart disease. Heart disease, our number one killer, both men and women, every single year for the last 94 years. Right? Back in 1990, Dr. Dean Ornish proved that you could prevent, stop, and reverse heart disease, yet since then millions of people have died, unnecessary deaths. We have the miracle cure, we've had it for decades, to our number one killer, and yet how many people have heard about it? There's tremendous resistance in the medical establishment towards this kind of lifestyle medicine, and it's changing. But you remember, just recently, McDougall tried to get the, Senate Bill 380 passed through the California Senate, just to get a pittance, 7 hours of nutrition training for doctors over the next, 4 or 5 years, and the California Medical Association came out against it. Right? Mainstream medical associations came out against doctors even getting a few hours of nutrition. We know they're not getting in medical school. So out of the hundreds of hours of continuing medical education, at least could they get a few hours of nutrition? This was opposed by the medical establishment. What did we learn in medical school? we learned what the pharmaceutical industry wanted us to learn. Maybe we were taken out to drug lunches. That's where a lot of our educational materials came from. On average, doctors in the United States, may get 23 hours of nutrition training out of thousands of hours of preclinical instruction. Usually it's just kind of the biochemistry of vitamins, not clinical nutrition, not nutrition on how to prevent, treat, and reverse disease. In fact, not just any disease, but the leading killers. If we really cared about helping people, right, these are the tools that we would give physicians to help people. Nathan Pritikin was reversing heart disease without drugs and surgery for decades before finally Ornish in 1990 published in The Lancet proving that you could open up arteries without drugs, without surgery, right, with lifestyle changes alone. Proved black and white, published in one of the most prestigious medical journals in the world. Only then, I think, did much of the medical world stand up and listen, but they haven't been listening closely enough. Yeah, there's a very interesting paper published 27 years ago in the Journal of the American Medical Association called The Tomato Effect. What they were describing is this, the resistance within the medical community against even highly efficacious therapies. And the reason they call it the tomato effect is because, in the 1500s, the tomato was a staple in European diet, but it was shunned actively for decades here in North America. Why? Because people thought they were poisonous. Despite all the evidence. In fact, it wasn't until 1820, I believe, someone got on the steps of the courthouse, ate a tomato, and survived. Did things actually change? And now it's $1 billion crop. That same tomato, which we thought was poisonous, for hundreds of years here in North America. And so they point out there's a number of things in medicine, the same thing, that there's this extreme resistance, this kind of clinging to orthodoxy within the medical establishment, even against things that we know work. And so I give the example of beriberi in the 1800s, when we polished brown rice to white rice before we enriched white rice with B vitamins. Millions of people in Asia died from something called beriberi, which is a vitamin B deficiency. It affects the heart muscle. So millions died of basically heart attacks because of this B vitamin deficiency. Yet, once the cure was discovered, rice bran, the brown part of rice, or rice bran tea, there were still decades of death before the medical community finally came around. Same thing with scurvy. There's, 100 years. We knew lemon juice cured scurvy for 100 years before it was finally embraced by the medical community, because at the time it was thought to be a disease was, imbalance of the humor. So what possible role could diet play? I mean, so these showed the examples of the so-called tomato effect. And so I tried to kind of modernize that concept into the field of nutrition, saying, look, we have an epidemic of heart disease in this country. Millions of Americans at risk. Another disease caused by diet. Another disease for which we have a cure. How long must we wait?
As you can see, Dr. Greger even gave up his own private practice to promote nutrition, and that's how serious he is about it. Food is just powerful medicine. And we do have to take charge of our health, and it's good news. And there's so many things out there and varieties we can eat. And there's myths. People say if I become a vegetarian, it's going to be more expensive. If you understand it and do it right, you're going to cut your bill anywhere from 25 to 35%. Especially when you're buying things in season, et cetera, et cetera. We'll watch one more short video with Dr. Esselstyn on reversing disease. I do want to make the point across that it's real. These are people who've spent their whole life studying these things, and they weren't always into the vegetarian, but they got educated and they learned. Esselstyn and Dr. Campbell, these are guys raised on dairy farms. They were promoters of dairy until they learned about it. Now they're redeeming themselves, so to speak, by helping us to understand better what's really going on. Went the wrong way, excuse me. Little 3-minute video.
The study actually was designed very simplistically. I asked cardiology to send us a number of patients who were absolutely representative of a group who'd had a significant shot across the bow. They had coronary artery disease, but in actual fact, as my late brother-in-law says, I got the walking dead. These are patients who had failed their first or second angioplasty, they had failed their first or second bypass, they were too sick for these procedures, or they had refused. And 5 had been told by their expert cardiologist that they would not live out the year. Well, now, my challenge was, how was I going to get these people to eat this plant-based nutrition? Because here I was asking an awful lot of these people because they were seeing a general surgeon who had this kind of crazy idea that if you ate plant-based, you might be able to actually halt or reverse your heart disease. And so how was I going to accomplish this? I was not a trained psychologist in behavioral modification. So I decided to use the same mantra for these patients that I used for my cancer patients, namely that I had learned this from a surgeon for whom I had great respect on the West Coast years ago, and that was Bert Dunphy. And Bert said that patients with cancer are not afraid to suffer. Patients with cancer are not afraid to die. But patients with cancer are afraid of being abandoned by their family or by their physician. So to see if I could get these patients from bailing out on us, I saw them every 2 weeks in the office for the first 5 years. And then I lengthened it out to every 4 weeks for the next 5 years, so that by a decade, now they really were pretty well on autopilot. And I was able to lengthen it out to quarterly. But the exciting thing was that what we saw with these patients was that all those compliant patients totally arrested any further progression of their disease. And we often saw, with some of the follow-up angiograms, striking evidence of disease reversal. And that's what sort of inspired me, even after I retired from surgery, to keep going with this program and see if we couldn't really lengthen it out, broaden it, and make the entire foundation of this experience more solid.
So as we can see, food is powerful medicine. Again, research after research. We shouldn't have to wait 500 years for somebody to go on. We know that pharmaceutical companies control a lot of the medical world. It's just been like that for years. We look at things and talk about natural healings. People get nervous or people talk about herbal remedies. We have to get educated. There's flukes in every area, whether it's natural healing or in the medical world. Whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, if you eat a whole food plant-based diet, you're going to get the results. We know that the rain falls on the grass and it falls on the weeds and they both grow, right? But the original diet that was given to us was a whole food plant-based diet. Our body is designed for natural things. It's not designed for processed unnatural things. This little last clip here, I just put on to encourage, and hopefully we'll get a link up, but if not, you can go to YouTube, put in Eating You Alive free. It's now online. Hasn't been since they came out, but recently they put it up. It's an excellent DVD, will educate you greatly. It's fun, it's fast-paced, as you will see in this little trailer here.
People aren't living longer, they're dying longer.
I'm a steak guy.
Fish.
Sushi, actually.
Got up as heavy as 518 pounds.
6 months you'll be in dialysis or you'll be dead.
I can't have that one candy bar a week because I didn't have an off switch.
You're going to be on insulin the rest of your life.
I wasn't making any progress on the pills.
We see this kind of cancer, there's no known cure.
I was flat on a gurney and they were debating, do I have triple bypass?
I thought that my hypertension was genetic.
You're out of control. And they were not giving me any hope at all.
We had the cure. We've had it for decades.
What we know from cigarette smoking is the public doesn't like to be lied to.
We need education more than medication.
Can't blame doctors. They're not trained in this field.
I was really angry. I just could not understand why I didn't learn any of this in medical school.
The food industry was $1 trillion industry. It uses very similar kind of tobacco-style techniques, paying off scientists and funding studies.
What is on our plate is really affecting our environment.
We have been putting the wrong fuel in our
Americans. Europeans are being poisoned by these animal foods.
You can see what the person is eating by looking at the plaque in their artery.
There's a plaque right there.
We're literally bypassing the problem.
Without some serious lifestyle changes, this guy will be back.
Foods are the cause of diabetes, of heart disease, of many forms of cancer, of hypertension. And if they're the cause, they can also be the solution.
I had to really look at it to see patients that I knew should be dead by my conventional training, alive and well, tumors melting away.
The power is not inside of our hands as physicians. The power is inside your hands through your life choices.
Don't let your culture hold your heart hostage.
Many symptoms and diseases just melt away even after being there for years.
The doctor said this woman alleges to have lupus, but we're not finding any evidence of it.
Doctor says you're no longer diabetic.
The most important decision anyone makes every day is what they elect to put in their mouths.
I need to make a change, but what do I do?
In the nutrition classes that I teach, a big component of that is taking people to the grocery store and doing hands-on training and teach people label reading.
I think it is something that will really work. It's just my habits.
Probably 95% of America has no idea how to eat.
It's not so much about trying to invent a new way of life, but rather discovering the foods that are right here in front of you.
I think that's the gift of the plant-based diet, is it really kind of taps into all your different creative parts and you just start really experiencing a new variety.
This is my garlic Alfredo. It's just 7 ingredients. Just start out with chopping some onions, chopping some garlic.
We're on the cusp of a paradigm shift. To me, this is the future of food.
I can't imagine another way that we could have a greater impact on our health.
Standing in front of you is obviously not a hindrance in bodybuilding to eat whole plant foods.
To be able to push through 90 minutes and not get stopped by muscle cramps was an amazing feeling.
Food is powerful.
I've been in medicine for over 30 years, and for the very first time, I can truly look someone in the eye and I can say, I can heal you.
Why isn't every person trying this?
It's the best thing that ever happened to me. It saved my life, it saved my marriage.
It's really nice to do things when you get results.
Here, I was in control all along.
Gave me freedom.
This is where medicine should be.
Come on. What's on your plate?
As you can see, plant-based diets have a lot of power in them. And again, each of us have to take our health in our own hands. We can't expect somebody else to do it. I do want to encourage people. It is a lifestyle change, and it takes effort. And it's nice if you can partner up with somebody and transition. Most people can't go overnight from one diet to another. But as you progress, everything you do will benefit you. And you can see that these diseases can be reversed. So if you're type 2 diabetic, chances are by changing your diet, within a couple months you'll no longer be a diabetic. If you watch this Eating You Alive, you're going to see great testimonies. And most of those people you saw talking, they're all doctors, which is rare in this day and age to have doctors talking about nutrition and promoting whole food plant-based diets. You know, the Lord loves us and we love each other. And who wants to see their loved ones get sick? We've been duped for so many years that we need to take control of our health again. When you realize that pork is highly infected on the market, that 1 out of 4 products are infected with live trichina, when you learn that all your red meats and stuff, and all hamburger, unless it's noted on the package, all hamburger is colored with dyes, because when it's processed, as you'll see next week, it turns green because of the high heat things. It spoils, so they want it to look fresh. So people are eating stuff that's already damaged. It goes on. That's not counting the adrenaline because of the way they're killing these animals anymore. It's just pitiful out there. So if you wonder why you're sick all the time and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, I just recommend that you watch this video and start making efforts to better your life and your family's life. When you know something is carcinogenic, when you know for a fact from science that it promotes cancer cells, if you want to continue taking those products in your body, you need to expect that you'll probably come down with cancer and other problems and tumors and your little children. They say we're in the first generation. If we don't change, children will die before their parents. We look at the obesity again in this country. It's at 1/3 Do you realize that's over 100 million people obese? And then there's overweight, and then there's diseases, and then there's anorexia. You see, it goes on and on. So thanks for listening tonight. I hope that you learned something that will encourage you, because that's it. We're not here to condemn anybody. It's not my job to do that. I just want to educate people, so if you're ready for a change of life, this will do it. And we'll put some links up in the near future where you can ask questions. Till then, I do have a Facebook page called Health and Recipe Club. Feel free to join that, and it'll teach you a lot about whole food plant-based diets, simple recipes, meals that you can make in 10 minutes or less, etc., etc. And it's a lot of fun. And you don't have to be a vegetarian to come on it. Just come on and see what it is. Thank you.